Well, a traffic alert out of Fort Lee, New Jersey. A water main break has caused a sinkhole in the area of Lemoyne Avenue and Main Street, and it's causing some pretty heavy traffic in the area. Drivers are advised to avoid the area if that's at all possible. Crews are still trying to repair a broken water main responsible for flooding streets and buildings in Greenwich Village. It could be a few more days until that's fixed. It broke yesterday, and because of it, Fifth Avenue will remain closed between 14th and 12th Streets. Officials say the pipe's age, dating back to 1877, along with changing temperatures, is probably to blame for that break. Well, it's no secret that New York's network of pipes is getting old. In many cases, very, very old. Experts estimate it will take almost $60 billion to improve the drinking water and the wastewater systems over the next 20 years. Denise Richardson joins me now. She's the managing director of General Contractors Association of New York, also a former deputy commissioner of the New York City Department of Environmental Protection, where you focused a lot on water with the DEP.
Yes.
So first of all, when we're looking at this massive infrastructure, why is it so old? Why are we having such a problem with aging pipes?
Well, in fairness to the city, we have to compare the city to the rest of the country, and the rate of water main breaks in New York City is actually much less than what is the acceptable national standard, which is a scary prospect in and of itself, since the national standard for water main breaks is over 200 water main breaks per 1,000 miles of pipe. And in the case of DEP, we don't have anywhere near that ratio for New York City. And if you look at the number of water main breaks over the years, it's been steadily declining.
But if you're,
let's set that as the basis.
But if you're
first.
in a suburb of Milwaukee and there's a water main break, the damage, because things are not as condensely packed as they are in New York City, it might not be as great in a suburb of some Midwestern city as it is in New York City. When it happens here, it can be devastating.
That's absolutely true, which is why what really needs to happen is the city needs to make the investments to replace all of its outdated water mains. And there are about 20% of the city's water mains that are over 100 years old. And what really needs to happen is that instead of a wait until it breaks process, they need to systematically engage in a program of replacing them, but then the issue becomes money.
And Bloomberg had taken the reins in his hands and said, we're going to go forward and we're going to plan ahead, and especially around Sandy, we're not going to wait for the next storm to happen. We're going to replace our infrastructure now. Is there a dedicated revenue stream for, not for emergency repairs, but for systematic replacement?
The dedicated revenue stream to support the entire water and sewer system is the city's water bills, the water rates that are assessed to all of the buildings in New York City. The problem that the city has faced, certainly the last 10 years, has been the need to systematically use more and more resources to meet federal consent order mandates to upgrade the wastewater treatment system and to meet the Safe Drinking Water Act standards. So what that meant was that the city had considerably less money to invest in routine water and sewer main replacement. And so this water main break really is just a symbol of that larger issue.
Okay, so Denise, when we're looking at 7,000 miles of pipeline, you're telling us 20% of those pipes are more than 100 years old. 50%, half of them are 50 years or older. How much longer can we depend on these old pipes?
Well, there's two engineering schools of thought, really. One is, if the water main is functioning and you have not detected any leaks, and the city does have a leak detection program where they will survey the water mains on an ongoing basis, then it should be left alone. Then there is a school of thought that says once the water main gets to X age, over 100 years, which is about the expected lifespan, it should be replaced. Certainly in an environment like New York City, where you can see the impact of just this 2-block stretch of a water main break, the policy that really should be adopted is to replace those water mains once they hit that 100-year mark and not take a risk like this.
Okay, so these are undergrounds. For instance, we've had these periods, even just this winter, of really deep freezes and then an incredible thaw. Does that exacerbate the potential for water main breaks?
Absolutely. In the same way that weather like this will increase the number of potholes, it has the same impact on the water main system. The other thing that's a big contributing factor in water main breaks is how often the surrounding soil and the surrounding area around the water main is disturbed. And in a case like New York, where we're always improving utilities, laying new pipe, putting in fiber optic cable, replacing gas mains, the stress on the water main system becomes that much greater.
Well, can't they just replace those pipes then when they're going in to lay in fiber optics or
The
the
city
light?
does do that with
Yeah.
the Department of Design and Construction. They will do a systematic street replacement, and that takes care of all of the utilities in the street at one time.
And finally, is there anything that neighbors can do to look at the street and say, oh, I better warn somebody that this looks like a water main break might happen? Is there any sort of signal?
There's a couple of key signals. First of all, if you see water bubbling up from the street, you know you have a water main break. Also, a change in water pressure will also be a good indicator, which in many large buildings is hard to tell.
Is that a
but you can
311
see that.
call or is that a 911 call?
It should be a 311 call.
Okay.
But you should, when you make that 311 call, you should specifically say that you believe there may be a water main break, and that escalates it in the queue.
Okay,
for
so
DEP to
water bubbling up
respond.
from the street or a
And
serious
changes
drop
in water pressure.
Okay. All right, Denise, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate your time. It's great information.
Thank you.
Well, Janice's evening forecast is straight ahead, plus this.
Does Obamacare,